You know how I got this idea? I stole it. 7 very unpopular opinions you're gonna hate me for. Let's roll on. Number 7, CR7's penalties aren't all that great. Like I said before, this is simply a case of personal preference. But of course, in the internet you're not allowed to have a differing opinion. Nonetheless, here's the clip. He very rarely hits the corners or side netting, usually relies on the keeper to go the wrong way. The stop-start thing he used to do was bullshit, and he barely ever aims for top bins. And look, this may just be a personal preference, but I personally prefer someone who offers something completely different like Bruno's hop, skip and jump tech, someone like Harry Kane who almost always hits the side netting, or even someone like Alan Shearer back in the day who hit that rocket into the roof of the net. And as for someone like CR, his just look ordinary. Tell me when I'm telling lies. Number 6, the gaping gap in Guardiola's GOAT plea. Josep Guardiola Salah, undoubtedly among the greatest brains the game has ever seen, and as far as being a tactical genius, he's right up there with the Johan Cruyffs. As far as having a strong personality, he's right up there with the Jose Mourinho's. As far as his overall impact in the game, he's right up there with the Arsene Wenger's. As far as the success he's had, he's right up there with Sir Alex Ferguson. You know what I'm gonna say now. However, this is again down to personal preference, but for me to be the greatest manager there's ever been, you have to an extent, showcase your skill with lesser players. To an extent. So obviously it doesn't mean you have to go down to League 2 or the Conference League, but let's say Porto, Monaco, on a stretch Aberdeen. And look, this is no doubt a criticism of Pep most of you have heard before. He goes where the talent is, he goes where the money is. But the reason why I believe that takes away from the credentials to be the GOAT specifically for Pep is his style of play. Because you see, Pep's football philosophy, which is basically a modernized and or advanced version of Cruyff's ideas, IMO could only bring you sustained success if you have elite level players at your disposal. Like bro, you can try as hard as you want, but lesser teams simply can't be successful with that approach. Why do you think La Liga isn't competitive anymore? They all basically play some sort of variation of that style, so the more technically gifted players will come out on top. Hell, why do you think the Premier League has lost the competitive edge it had in the upper to mid table during the 90s and 2000s? Because again, most teams try and play out from the back now, and therefore only the best will succeed. And that is why I don't think Pep ever could have even gotten close to what Mourinho and Sir Alex Ferguson did earlier in their careers. And boy, he'd have lost all 4 of his remaining heads had he been in Leicester in 2016. Man's always halfway to a mental breakdown with De Bruyne and Haaland on his team as it is. Can you imagine him trying to teach Danny Drinkwater how to kick a ball? Disaster written all over that. Number 5, the joy of comparisons. Or in other words, comparisons aren't the thief of joy. Like yeah, it is pretty clear that I love the Messi and Ronaldo rivalry, but this isn't just exclusive to that. From the very beginning, I've always been an extremely competitive guy who, when it came to any sport I watched, to be honest, loved comparing, debating, and at times even arguing about the players and or teams I liked and or disliked. And sorry fam, but for me, that is one of the things that keeps the sport alive. What does kill it though are A, the toxic people who make it personal, or B, the toxic people who dismiss the opposing player. For example, Messi being a better passer than Ronaldo doesn't make Ronaldo a poor passer of the ball. Likewise, Ronaldo being more adaptable than Messi doesn't mean that Messi will flop in the Premier League, as well as other examples I gave in this video. Do check it out, please. Number 4, R9 is one of the most overrated footballers in history. Made an entire video on this too before, but in short, Ronaldo Nazario is one of the most talented footballers ever. Check. One of the most exciting footballers ever. Check. One of the most beloved footballers ever. Damn right. But boy, is he far from being anywhere near one of the greatest footballers ever. And this is where most people lose me on this. Even if we only look at his peak, he still couldn't lace Messi and Ronaldo's boots. Again, for more info, watch this video. But yeah man, how so many people think he has a genuine claim to be in the GOAT debate is simply beyond my understanding. Or maybe not if you look at number 3, footballer versus. Yeah, another entry I've made an entire video on before. And like I said back then, this is something not only fans disagree with me on, but also ex-players themselves. And yet, I know I'm right. Like, stop me when you've heard this before, but so Bob, who's better, Mbappe or Haaland? Oh, that's a good question, Abdul Khalif Alasumi Babutunde. I think the best racial equality, by the way. We use all kind of names. But yeah, I'd say Haaland is the better goal scorer and Mbappe is the better footballer. You see that? Precisely that is precisely dumb. Why? And do let me know exactly where I'm wrong with this, but what makes a better player isn't who is able to score more goals / dribble past more players / get more assists, but it's the one who does the job they're given to do to the highest standard and in turn help their team attain success. Here's an example. Let's say you're trying to make a decision on who should rank higher in the list of the greatest footballers of all time between Paolo Maldini and Zinedine Zidane. Two players with completely different roles on the pitch, in completely different ends of the pitch, but both undoubtedly among the GOATs. So, if you wish to judge who the better player was, you see if Zizou dribble past players, make final passes, score important goals, produce moments of magic, and make his team's attacks tick. Better than Maldini, time his tackles, keep wingers at bay, win physical duels, organize his defense, and etc. And from there, you see whose contributions were more vital to their teams and how successful their teams were as a result. And then, since this particular example is judged over a career and not a solitary season like the Ballon d'Or, you then look at who, out of Maldini and Zidane, was better at transferring those contributions to different teams, different systems, under different managers, and perhaps even across different eras. And basically, who was better at utilizing his individual attributes regardless of the circumstances that may have surrounded him. So in the case of Maldini and Zizou, the category concerned with who did their job better consistently and thus helped their teams be successful will have to go to the son of Cesare. He won a lot more during his career and was predominantly in defensively solid teams where more often than not he was the leader and organizer of the defense. On the other hand, as far as the category of who was able to transfer their performances to different teams in different setups and under different managers while still being successful, you'd go for Zizou. Not only did he win everywhere he went, but the level of his teammates or even opposition seemed to have little to no effect on his actual performances. But to claim that Maldini was any less of a footballer than Zidane because his job required him to have a different and far less fancied skill set, come on man, that's just stupid. Again, it's basically impossible for me to be wrong in this. And look, I'm pretty sure some of you are just confusing favourite and best. I'm just past that confusion. Like, yes, I realize that the players who take you off your seat with amazing skills and goals will always be high up for you. But when it comes to rating them as the best, it's the mentality from school, isn't it? The one who does the most skills or scores the most goals is the best player. Unfortunately though, 11-a-side football doesn't work like that. If it did, you'd see Messi doing what he did against Getafe at least twice a game. Like, you know, your guy used to do in the playground back in the day. And if you're someone who wants to combat my point by saying, well, dribbling past players and creating is much more difficult than defending and goalkeeping, okay, I guess I can get on board with that. Only if you think Messi and Ronaldo can keep one clean sheet as a defensive pair in a 38-game season. Just one. Not asking for much. And be honest, do you think they can? And look, I'm not a robot, okay? I have my favourites too. Like I've said many times before, David Beckham was my footballing idol growing up. And in my eyes, he's the best. But if I were to judge objectively, I'm not dumb enough to think he was a better footballer than Maldini or Baresi. Positions be damned. And similarly, and I'm 110% dead serious when I say this, Sergio Ramos was easily a better footballer than R9. And again, it might annoy a lot of you, but I honestly can't see any way where I'm objectively wrong. I'm not. Number 2, my solitary stand against the Cyber Soldiers Association. Yeah, so this is by far my most unpopular opinion on YouTube. Emphasis on YouTube. Because in the real world with, you know, real men with real life problems, trust me, it'll be a hit. But boy, is it a huge miss online. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe 20 of you actively disagreed with me on this. And you might not think that's a lot, until you realize only about 23 of you watch these videos. Probability thing, do the maths. And I won't lie, the only reason this opinion isn't first is because it's not entirely to do with football. And that's the following: you should never take comfort in being behind the screen and say things to or about people you'll never have the balls to do so face to face. And look, I'm not completely brain dead, okay? I know why this opinion is unpopular online. I'm literally saying being a pussy is a bad thing on the internet. Bro, that's literally like going to the Camp Nou standing in the middle and shouting, obviously you'll get abused, obviously no one will agree with you. And look, the truth is I'm still kinda getting used to some of the language and thinking patterns of you mentally very stable people have, and that's normal. But I'll never find this normal. A man who's completely okay with saying things to someone that he knows he'll be too scared to do so face to face. Like, man, even thinking about that makes me feel like I've just lost a testicle. Like, how do you even look at your mother's, sister's, girlfriends or whoever knowing that, God forbid, but if they were in any kind of danger, you're the type of guy who'd probably be hiding behind them while pushing them forward to protect you? And for those saying that has nothing to do with anything and I'm overanalyzing and drawing false equivalencies, be honest, that's the kind of person you are. Which brings me to this guy, Mr. Nosebleed from HITC 7s. So I picked him out as an example into... Oh, by the way, I call him Mr. Nosebleed because he just looks like someone who gets a load of nosebleeds. Not much else to it.
But yeah, I've used him as an example before as someone who's constantly passive-aggressively digging out people who he'd literally piss himself in front of if he ever saw them in person. And while it's the Ronaldo stuff that annoys me the most because he's my guy, also, it was people like Dana White, Andrew Tate, True Geordie, etc. But of course, when I use those examples, you lot, desperate to excuse and justify your own wussiness, just spun it and said, "Oh, how dare you back Andrew Tate." I'm not backing Andrew Tate, you half a creature. I don't even like Andrew Tate. He was just one of those examples of the select group of people I saw this guy dig out who he'd hide behind his girlfriend if he saw them in person. And yeah, look, of course it's Andrew Tate's name that caused the most outrage cause, well, firstly, as a person, he by all accounts is a supreme piece of circular turd. And secondly, and this I feel like irks certain people even more, he's a legit former kickboxer who gives very triggering opinions who people love to abuse online. And when I pointed out that none of you would say these things to his face, it really struck a nerve cause, well, it's obviously true. But as expected, most of the Cyber Soldiers Association then spun that as, oh, so you can't criticize anyone you can't beat in a fight no matter how terrible of people they are? You worm. Of course you can criticize. Of course you can even slander. But there is a fine line between digging out a terrible person online when you just happen to come across an awful act or opinion, and finding so much comfort in knowing that you're behind the screen that your digging out becomes consistent / relentless / well, second nature. Them ones where it doesn't even feel any different to aggressively slander someone online. And that sort of comfort level is only occupied by people like this. But having said that, honestly, it's not just him, man. He was just the example that was present at the time. Like, here's one more I can recall. I remember arguing with a complete beg who just wouldn't stop commenting on my videos even though I, someone who could barely crack 1k views at the time, requested him to fuck off and stop watching. And yet, he just continued commenting BS cause, you know, clearly he has a lot going on in his life. So I called him out on not having a picture of his face yet getting personal and talking with such confidence. And he said something like, he doesn't have a picture due to the fear of doxing? Are you for real? You're worried about your own safety online so much so that you can't even show your face, yet you're getting brave with people who'd slap the lips off your face if you spoke to them like that face to face? Again, how do you face your mom, sister, girlfriend, wife or whatever, knowing how much of a wimp you are? That's just... You know what, silver lining? I guess to be like that you need a different type of mental strength. Cause I can never face myself if I was that kind of guy. And you know what, for a bonus, here's another more specific example. And I'll be honest, I don't even entirely dislike this guy, but Uncle MLC over here. MLC stands for midlife crisis, not rocket science. Now him, I don't even consider as having a full membership with the Cyber Soldiers Association. And to be fair, I've heard him say things I'm more than fuck with, like people are getting too brave these days cause they won't be slapped in the face. Big up. But I've also heard him say on air that Tyson Fury is one of the ugliest people he's ever seen in his life. Should I let you work out where the contradiction lies here on your own? Ah, nah, screw it. I can't even trust you to do that. But yeah, basically,
consider this as a wild guess, but something tells me he'll never say that to Fury's face. Well, not with dry underwear anyway. Anyways, 2 more things. Number 1, for the morons saying, oh, so we should never criticize any sports person or anything if we can't say it to their face. Like we're not even supposed to debate anymore and just sit in silence and watch. Oh, how dumb could you get? And don't even try it. I know for a fact that's what some of you lot are thinking. And well, I'll clear that up with this comment. And I quote, if you follow sports or any sort of entertainment, you can criticize, you can even be harsh and say stuff like he's been shit or whatever. But if your comments online are personal and have nothing to do with the actual performance, or become so relentless that it obviously is personal and borderline harassment, then you should be confident enough to say it to the person's face. You can make these personal comments behind closed doors to mates. It's awful and not right, but we all gossip. It's human nature. But if you have the confidence to publicly put forth a personal insult / relentlessly target someone over anything, especially someone who you don't know or maybe have never even met, yeah, no, you should be able to say it to their face. I keep repeating this, but for people like you, it's necessary to, as you'll get confused. This kind of thinking doesn't make me a tough man, it just makes me a grown man. Literally couldn't have made it any more clear. And 2, for those pointing at some of the stuff I said about Jamie Carragher and relating it to this situation. And number 1, crimes against Messi FC. Cause obviously, Messi is an overrated passer of the ball. Messi can never be above Pele. Messi's World Cup win did little to impact the GOAT debate. The cold rainy night in Stoke memes pose a pretty decent argument. Messi's Barca exit made no on-field difference to the club. Messi's time at PSG was hugely underwhelming. And believe me, I can go on. The only reason I ain't, cause I genuinely dislike the narrative that I dislike him. Again, watch my videos. I love the guy and I do give credit where credit is due. But because he is so loved all over the world, people get carried away. And carried away with a lot. And you know what, while we're at it, let me just add another onto the rap sheet. I heard Gary Lineker, who else, say the other day that Messi has a much bigger repertoire of goals than Ronaldo. And I also saw Micah Richards nodding along. In my opinion, well, first off, Mr. Lineker should have taken his meds before recording something for TV. Father time waits for no one, unfortunately. Well, for Micah, it's just... well, I can't be too harsh to him. Messi was probably before his time.
It was sort of before my time, though. A couple of these are before my time. It was a little bit before my time. I watched the videos. Did you watch the videos? I watched the videos. I watched some videos of him. It's because of the videos I watched.
Calm down, bro. You're 37, not 17. Or even 7. Christ. And that is that. Agree or disagree beats indifference. So what do you think of these? Do you have any unpopular opinions yourself? Do let me know, because that's actually a really interesting subject. But yes, of course, as always, do like, share and subscribe. Till next time, you keep rolling.